Commander Tajin walked through the halls of the Grand Station with his head held high. His body was made of hard crystal that shined like diamonds, and his steps made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. He had fought in more battles than any other commander in the Galactic Coalition. He had won every single fight. For 230 years, no one had ever defeated him. No one had even come close. Soldiers from many different species stopped and moved away as he passed. They knew who he was. Everyone knew who Commander Tajin was. The Valthian commander had conquered 17 entire star systems. Some people called him the Undefeated. Others simply called him Legend. Tajin did not mind either name. He believed both names were true. He was better than everyone else, and he knew it. His species, the Valthians, were strong and smart and perfect for war. They lived for hundreds of years, which meant they could learn and grow in ways that shorter-lived species could not. Tajin had used his long life to become the greatest warrior the galaxy had ever seen. The Valthians had ruled their sector of space for thousands of years, before humans ever left their home planet. Humans were new to space travel. They had only joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago. To Tajin and many other aliens, humans were like children playing with toys they did not understand. Humans were small and weak. They died so easily and so quickly. Most of them did not even live to see 100 years. How could such short-lived creatures ever be important? How could they ever matter in the grand plans of the universe? Tajin entered the great conference room where many commanders from different species had come together. There were tall beings with blue skin, creatures with many eyes, and beings made of pure energy held inside special containers. They all looked at Tajin with respect. Even the oldest and most powerful among them knew that Tajin was stronger and smarter than they were. He sat down at the head of the table without waiting for anyone to ask him to sit. The meeting began with bad news. A place called Kepler Station had been attacked 2 days ago. Kepler Station was a human place, a station in space where humans lived and worked. It was a big station with 3,000 people living inside it. But now it was broken. The attack had come from a group of pirates who wanted to steal things from the station. The pirates had used weapons that were very strong. When the attack was over, 300 people were dead. 300 humans gone forever. A human officer named Captain Ji-hoon stood up to talk about what had happened. He wore a dark blue uniform with many medals on his chest. He was a pilot and a very good one. All the humans in the coalition respected him very much. He had fought in many battles and had never run away from danger, but to most of the alien commanders in this room, he was just another small, weak human. He would live for maybe 80 or 90 years if he was very lucky. Then he would be dead, and the universe would go on without him. Captain Ji-hoon started to talk about the 300 who had died. He talked about how they were brave. He talked about how they had fought hard to save the other people who lived on the station. He said their names and talked about who they were. He said one name more than any other name. He said Lieutenant Wu Jin many times. Wu Jin had been a doctor on the station. Wu Jin had helped people. Wu Jin had tried to save people when the station was being attacked. Taejun listened, but he did not really care. He heard the words, but they meant nothing to him. 300 humans out of billions? That was nothing. That was less than nothing. That was like saying 1 grain of sand fell out of a whole beach. Why should anyone care? Why should anyone make such big feelings about this small thing? When Captain Ji-hoon finished talking, Taejun did something that would change everything. He stood up and walked toward the human officer. The room became very quiet. Everyone stopped moving and stopped talking. They all watched to see what the legendary commander would do. Taejun looked down at Ji-hoon. Even though Ji-hoon was standing, he was still much shorter than Taejun. The Valthian commander spoke in a voice that was cold and hard like ice. 300 units lost, Taejun said. This is not important. This is not even worth our time to discuss. Your species has billions of people on your world. You breed quickly like animals. You die quickly like insects. This is the natural way of things. You knew that joining the coalition would have costs. These costs are small and normal. This is simply what happens when lesser beings try to do the work of greater beings. Taejun turned away from Ji-hoon and looked at the other commanders. Your species is new. You are young. You do not understand the real cost of war. We have fought battles where millions died. Millions, not hundreds. And we did not cry about it. We did not waste time with feelings. We accepted the loss and moved forward. This is how real soldiers think. This is how real commanders lead. Taejun sat back down in his chair. He did not look at Ji-hoon again. He did not care if the human felt bad. He did not think the human even mattered. To Taejin, Ji-hoon was just another small, short-lived creature who would be dead and forgotten in a few decades. The room remained very quiet. No one said anything. Some of the alien commanders looked at each other with worried eyes. They knew something bad was going to happen, but they did not know what it would be. Ji-hoon did not move. He did not sit down. He stood very still and his hands became tight fists at his sides. His face became red and his breathing became harder and faster. But he did not say anything. Not yet, he was thinking. He was remembering Wu Jin and all the others. He was remembering why they had mattered. He was remembering why he mattered. The other human officers who were in the room moved toward their friend. They put their hands on his shoulders. They knew what Taejin had just done. They knew that he had just made a huge mistake. A mistake so big that it would echo across the galaxy. One of the older human commanders whispered to Ji-hoon, "Let it go. He is not worth it. Do not do anything crazy." But Ji-hoon pulled away from their hands. He took a deep breath. And then he opened his mouth and spoke words that would change the history of the Galactic Coalition forever. "Wu Jin was not a unit," Ji-hoon said. His voice was quiet but very strong. "He was a person. He was my friend. He was a doctor who saved lives. He saved human lives and alien lives too. And he died trying to help people he did not even know. That matters, Commander. That matters more than anything else in this whole room right now." The entire conference room became frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed loudly. They all stared at Captain Ji-hoon and they all stared at Commander Taejin. What had just happened? A human had just talked back to the legendary commander. A human had just challenged the most powerful warrior in the entire Galactic Coalition. It was something that nobody had ever done before. Taejin slowly turned his crystal head back toward Ji-hoon. His eyes, which were bright and shiny like polished stones, looked straight into the human's eyes. For a long moment he did not say anything. He just looked at the human captain, and then something like a smile came across his face. But it was not a kind smile. It was a smile full of power and control. "You have something to say, human?" Taejin asked. His voice was calm but dangerous. It was like listening to thunder before the storm arrives. Ji-hoon stood up straight. He did not look away. Wu Jin was not just a unit. He was not just one of billions. He was special. He was important to me. He was important to the people he saved, and you did not even know his name. Other alien commanders began to move in their seats. They were uncomfortable. This was not the way things usually worked. Lower species did not talk to higher species like this. It was not proper. It was not the way things were done in the coalition. But nobody stopped it. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Taejin stood up slowly. His crystal body caught the light and threw it around the room like 1,000 tiny rainbows. He was very tall, much taller than Ji-hoon. He walked toward the human captain. Each step he took made a sound that echoed through the room. Step, step, step. He stopped just a few feet away from Ji-hoon, looking down at him. "Sentiment," Taejin said. "That is what I see when I look at you, human. Emotions, feelings, these things are weaknesses. They make warriors slow and clumsy. They make commanders make bad choices. This is why your species will never be truly great. This is why you will always be below us." Ji-hoon did not back away. He did not show fear. Inside his chest, his heart was beating very fast, but his face stayed calm and strong. "Sentiment is not weakness," he said. "And I can prove it." "Prove what?" Taejin asked. He seemed amused. Like Ji-hoon was a small child saying silly things. "That humans are not what you think we are," Ji-hoon said. He took a deep breath. "I challenge you to single combat, Commander. A duel, just you and me. Valthian tradition. I believe that is your people's way of settling important matters." The room exploded. Voices shouted in different languages. The alien commanders jumped to their feet. A human challenging a Valthian to single combat? This was something that was almost impossible. Humans were not strong enough. Humans would die in minutes, maybe even seconds. It would not be a fight. It would be an execution. Commander Park Min, who was the leader of all human forces in the coalition, stood up quickly. His face was very pale and worried. "Captain Ji-hoon," he said loudly. "No, you cannot do this. It is suicide." But Ji-hoon did not look at his commander. He kept looking at Taejin. "Do you accept, Commander?" Ji-hoon asked. For a moment, Taejin did not answer. He was thinking. According to the ancient laws of his people, He could not refuse a challenge from an enemy warrior. It would be shameful. It would be against everything his people believed in. But this was also just a human. This was a small, weak human who would be dead in a few minutes. There was no real danger here. There was no real fight. There was just duty and honor and an easy victory. Taijun made a sound like wind moving through broken glass. It was a Valthian laugh. I accept your challenge, human captain. We will meet in the ceremonial arena in 7 days. Bring your affairs in order. This is likely the last time you will walk among the living. Taijun turned and walked out of the conference room. Behind him, he left a stunned silence. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Everyone was thinking about what they had just seen and heard. The moment Taijun left, Commander Park Min rushed to Ji-hoon and grabbed his arm. "What were you thinking?" he demanded. "You just challenged the most powerful warrior alive. You just said yes to your own death." "I know," Ji-hoon said. His voice was very quiet. "Then why did you do it?" Park Min asked. His eyes were wide with confusion and fear. Ji-hoon looked at his commander. His eyes were sad, but they were also very strong and determined. Because Wu Jin deserved better than what Taijun said about him. Because all 300 who died deserved better. Because if we do not stand up for ourselves, the entire galaxy will keep thinking that we do not matter. I cannot let that happen. Over the next hours, the news spread everywhere. Every human on every station and every ship heard the news. Captain Ji-hoon had challenged Commander Taijun to a duel. Everyone was afraid, but everyone also felt something strange. They felt proud. They felt like someone had finally said the things that needed to be said, but at the same time they were worried. Ji-hoon would die. That was almost certain. Nobody had ever beaten Taijun. Nobody had ever even come close. The legendary commander had 230 years of fighting experience. He had a body made of crystal that was harder than steel. He had fought enemies that were 10 times bigger than him. How could a human beat someone like that? Ji-hoon went to his small room on the station. He sat down on his bed and put his face in his hands. He was scared. He was very scared. He knew that he had made a promise that maybe he could not keep. He knew that he might be dead in 7 days, but he also knew that he had done the right thing. Wu Jin was gone, but he was not forgotten, and that was something that Taijun could never take away. That night, Ji-hoon slept very little. He kept thinking about Wu Jin. He kept thinking about all the things they had done together. He kept thinking about how Wu Jin had always been kind to people, how he had always helped others, how he had died trying to save people, and somewhere deep inside, Ji-hoon knew that he had 7 days to figure out how to do the impossible. He had 7 days to prepare for a fight that he should not be able to win. He had 7 days to prove that human did not mean weak. He had 7 days to change the galaxy. The first thing that Ji-hoon did was go to Dr. Haewon. She was a human scientist who had studied alien species for many years. Her office was full of books and computers and strange devices. The walls were covered with drawings and maps and information about hundreds of different creatures from across the galaxy. When Ji-hoon told her what he had done, she did not say that it was stupid. Instead, she sat down and started to think very hard. "Tell me everything about Taijun," she said. "Everything you know." Over the next 2 hours, they talked about Commander Taijun. Ji-hoon told her about his body. He told her that Taijun was made of a hard crystal that was almost impossible to break. He told her about how strong the Valthian commander was. He told her about how fast he could move and how he thought very quickly in battle. Dr. Haewon listened carefully and took notes. She pulled up many files on her computer. She showed Ji-hoon pictures and information about Valthian bodies and Valthian fighting styles. "Most of what we know about Valthian weaknesses comes from the few times they have fought among themselves," she said. "They are very strong, but that does not mean they have no weaknesses." "What are they?" Ji-hoon asked hopefully. "Their joints," Dr. Haewon said, pointing to information on her screen. "Look here. Their arms and legs connect in a different way than human arms and legs. They are strong in the straight directions, but they are less strong in the twisted directions. If you could somehow attack their joints at the right angles, you might be able to do damage." Ji-hoon nodded. This was useful information. But he still had a huge problem. He was not strong enough to fight Taijun directly. He needed to use his brain, not just his muscles. Commander Park Min also came to help. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was still very sharp and very quick. He had fought in more battles than most soldiers. He understood strategy and planning and how to win fights that seemed impossible. The most important thing, Parkman told Ji-hoon, is that you cannot try to fight Taejin the way he wants to fight. You cannot match his strength. You cannot match his speed. But you can do something that he does not expect. You can fight in ways that are unusual. You can think in ways that are different from him. They studied videos of Taejin fighting. They watched him fight against other aliens. They watched how he moved. They watched how he attacked. And they began to see patterns. Taejin was very powerful, but he was also very confident. He believed that he was better than everyone. Because of this, he did not always use his fastest attacks. He did not always attack with his most dangerous moves. He sometimes played with his enemies because he was so sure that he would win. That is his weakness, Parkman said, pointing at the screen. His confidence. He does not think that anyone can hurt him. So he fights with control and style, not with total force. That is something you can use. Ji-hoon began his training. Every day he would train for many hours. But he did not train the way that other soldiers trained. He did not try to get stronger and stronger. Instead, he trained to be more flexible. He trained to move in strange and unusual ways. He trained to think and plan while he was fighting. He trained to never give up even when he was tired and hurt. Miseo, the sister of the dead Woo Jin, came to watch Ji-hoon train one day. She was an engineer, strong and tough like her brother had been kind and gentle. She had always been proud of her brother. Now she wanted to help Ji-hoon. What do you need? She asked Ji-hoon. I need to understand what makes humans different from Valthians, Ji-hoon said. I need to know what we can do that they cannot do. Miseo thought about this. Then she said, we are small so we can fit into small spaces. We are flexible so we can bend and twist in ways they cannot. We are not as strong, but we do not get tired as fast when we fight smart. And we care about things. We fight for reasons that are more than just winning. We fight because we love people. This last thing was the most important, Ji-hoon realized. When he fought Taejin, he would not just be fighting for himself. He would be fighting for Woo Jin. He would be fighting for all 300 who had died. He would be fighting to prove that they mattered. That was something that Taejin would not have. That was something that would give Ji-hoon extra strength. Dr. Haewon taught Ji-hoon some of the Valthian fighting techniques. She taught him the ancient style of combat that Valthians used. If you understand their style, you can know what they will do before they do it, she explained. You can predict their moves. Every day, Ji-hoon would wake up early. He would practice flexible movements. He would study Taejin's fighting videos. He would talk with Commander Parkman about strategy. He would eat good food and sleep well. He prepared his mind and his body for the hardest fight of his life, but he also spent time thinking about Woo Jin. He would go to the place where Woo Jin's things were kept. He would look at pictures of his friend. He would remember the times they had laughed together. He would remember the time Woo Jin had saved his life after a training accident. He would remember how kind Woo Jin was to people. And he would remember why he was doing this. I will make you proud, Ji-hoon would whisper when he was alone. I promise you that, my friend. I will make the whole galaxy know your name. As the days passed, Ji-hoon became stronger and faster in his own way. Not the way that Valthians were strong, but stronger in ways that humans could be strong. He became more prepared than he had ever been in his entire life. He studied everything. He prepared for every possible situation. On the morning before the duel, Ji-hoon woke up very early. He was not nervous anymore. He was calm. He was ready. He knew that tomorrow, he would walk into an arena in front of thousands of aliens and fight against the greatest warrior alive. He knew that he might die. But he also knew that he had to try. He had to try because Woo Jin had mattered. He had to try because all those people had mattered. And most of all, he had to try because humans mattered too. The arena was enormous. It was as big as a small city. Thousands and thousands of aliens from every species in the Galactic Coalition had come to watch. They sat in huge stands that went up and up into the sky. Some of them were very tall beings and some were very small. Some had many eyes and some had none. They all spoke in different languages, but they all had come to watch the same thing. They had come to watch a human die. The arena floor was made of a special material that could not be broken by weapons or strong bodies. It was smooth and flat and dark gray. A circle was painted on the floor in bright white. This was the fighting area. Once the fight began, neither fighter was allowed to leave this circle. If someone stepped outside, they lost. Ji-hoon walked into the arena from one side. He wore simple clothes and soft shoes. He had no armor. He had no weapons. He brought nothing with him except his body and his mind. When the crowd saw him, they made sounds of surprise and worry. Many of them thought that Ji-hoon should be wearing armor. Many of them thought that he should have weapons. But Ji-hoon knew something that they did not know. Heavy armor would slow him down. Weapons would not help him against a body made of crystal. He needed to be fast and flexible, not heavy and protected. Commander Taejun walked into the arena from the other side. When the crowd saw him, they stood up and made loud sounds. They cheered for the legendary commander. They shouted his name over and over again. Taejun held his head high. He moved like he was certain that he would win. His crystal body shined so brightly that it hurt people's eyes. He looked at Ji-hoon like he was looking at an insect on the ground. The two fighters walked to the center of the white circle. An old Valthian who was very wise and very respected spoke the ancient words that started the duel. Two warriors stand here today. They will fight with honor. They will fight until one of them can no longer fight. Let the duel begin. Taejun moved first. He was so fast that many of the aliens in the crowd could not even follow his movement with their eyes. He swung one of his crystal arms toward Ji-hoon with amazing speed. The air made a sound like thunder when his arm moved through it, but Ji-hoon was ready. He had trained for this. He moved to the side and under Taejun's swing. The Valthian commander's arm passed just above his head. If Ji-hoon had not moved, his head would have been broken. Taejun was surprised that Ji-hoon had moved so fast. But he did not show it. He attacked again and again. He used all of his power and all of his speed. But every time he attacked, Ji-hoon moved at just the right moment. Sometimes he moved left. Sometimes he moved right. Sometimes he fell and rolled away. He moved in ways that Taejun did not expect. For 5 minutes this continued. Taejun attacked and Ji-hoon moved away from the attacks. The crowds were amazed. This human was not a complete fool. This human could actually fight. He could not hurt Taejun, but at least he could run and move. Then Taejun changed his style. He stopped trying to hit Ji-hoon with big, powerful swings. Instead, he began to move closer and closer. He tried to grab the human. He tried to crush him. When he finally got his hands around Ji-hoon, he began to squeeze with all of his power. Ji-hoon felt the pressure. It was like being crushed by the weight of a mountain. He could not breathe. He could not move his arms. This was what Taejun had wanted all along. This was how he would win. He would crush the human until there was nothing left. But then something happened that surprised everyone in the arena. Ji-hoon did something that looked impossible. He bent his body in a way that should have broken all of his bones. He twisted so that he was facing Taejun even though Taejun was still holding him. And then he did what Dr. Haewon had taught him. He attacked one of Taejun's joints. He attacked the place where Taejun's arm connected to his body. He did not use strength. He used an exact angle and an exact kind of push. He used the knowledge that Dr. Haewon had given him about Valthian bodies. He used the training that Commander Park Min had given him. For a second, nothing happened. Taejun was still holding Ji-hoon. Taejun was still squeezing. And then Taejun's grip became loose. Ji-hoon fell to the ground and moved away quickly. Taejun made a strange sound. It was a sound of pain and surprise. His crystal arm did not work the way it had always worked. Something was wrong. Something was hurt. The crowd became very quiet. For the first time in 230 years, Taejun had been hurt in a fight. A human had hurt him. It was not a big hurt, but it was a hurt, and everyone could see it. Taejun looked at his arm. He looked at the place where Ji-hoon had attacked. He could not believe what had happened. He looked at Ji-hoon with new eyes. This human was not just running away. This human was actually fighting back. This human had knowledge and skill. "You know our way," Taejun said slowly. "I learned," Ji-hoon replied. He was breathing hard and his body hurt, but his voice was strong. They fought again. This time it was different. Taejun was more careful. He did not use as much power. He was worried about his joints now. But this change also made him slower. It made him more careful. And careful fighting meant that he was not fighting at his best. The fight continued. 15 minutes passed. 20 minutes passed. In all of Taejun's life, he had never fought for so long. He was used to winning quickly. He was used to crushing his enemies in minutes. But this human would not be crushed. This human kept fighting and fighting and fighting. Ji-hoon's body was hurt. He had many places where his skin was torn. He knew that if Taejun hit him with full power even one time, it would be over. But he did not stop. He kept moving. He kept thinking. He kept fighting for Wu Jin and for all the others. And then, in the 23rd minute of the fight, Ji-hoon saw his chance. Taejin had made a small mistake. His defense had one tiny space where it was open for just a second. Ji-hoon saw it. He moved toward it. He did the exact move that Dr. Hae-won had taught him. He attacked Taejin's knee joint from a strange angle. This time the pain was real. This time Taejin fell down. He fell down on one knee, and he could not get back up. The arena became completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They were all looking at a human standing over a Valthian. They were all looking at the legendary commander on his knees. It was a moment that no one would ever forget. Ji-hoon stood above Commander Taejin. The legendary commander was on one knee. He could not stand up. He could not fight anymore. Ji-hoon could have hurt him more. Ji-hoon could have ended this fight right then. He could have proven that he was a better warrior by destroying the one who had defeated everyone else for 200 years. But Ji-hoon did not do that. Instead, he held out his hand to Taejin. His hand was small and weak compared to the Valthian's crystal body. But it was offered anyway. It was offered as a sign of respect. It was offered as a sign of honor. For a moment, Taejin looked at the hand. He looked at the human standing in front of him. And then slowly he took the hand. Taejin let Ji-hoon help him stand up. When he was on his feet again, he looked at the human captain for a long time. "I was wrong," Taejin said. His voice was calm and clear so that everyone in the arena could hear. "I was wrong about humans. I was wrong about your friend. I was wrong about your species." Taejin turned to face the crowd. "This human did not beat me because he was stronger. He beat me because he fought with purpose. He beat me because someone he loved had died. He beat me because he would not accept that his friend did not matter. That is something that I did not understand. That is something that I was blind to for 200 years. Taejin looked back at Ji-hoon. "Your friend Wu Jin mattered. Your friend was important. And now because of you, the whole galaxy knows his name. That is strength. That is true strength." The arena exploded. The aliens in the crowd began to make sounds of excitement and amazement. They started to cheer. But they were not cheering for violence or for winning in the old way. They were cheering because something had changed. Something important had changed in that arena today. News of the duel spread across the entire Galactic Coalition. Human ships and human stations received the message. Captain Ji-hoon had fought the legendary commander. Captain Ji-hoon had won. But more important than that, the human captain had shown that humans were not weak. Humans were not just small creatures who would die quickly. Humans were warriors. Humans were worthy of respect. In the days after the duel, something strange happened. Other species started to study human fighting techniques. Military schools began to teach the way that Ji-hoon had fought. Commanders and warriors wanted to learn how humans could win against bigger and stronger enemies. The answer was always the same. It was not strength or power or even skill alone. It was the ability to think in new ways. It was the ability to care about things enough to fight for them. It was the ability to never give up. Ji-hoon went to the memorial wall where they kept the names of all the people who had died in the attack on Kepler Station. 300 names were carved into the wall in metal letters. One of those names was Wu Jin. Ji-hoon put his hand on that name and closed his eyes. Commander Parkman stood next to him. Dr. Hae-won stood next to him. And Miseo, Wu Jin's sister, stood next to him. They all touched the wall in their own way and remembered the man who had been kind to everyone. "He would have been proud of you," Miseo said quietly. "He already is," Ji-hoon replied. "The whole galaxy knows his name now. The whole galaxy knows what he did. That is what matters." In the years that followed, Ji-hoon became the bridge between humans and the alien species of the Coalition. When new species wanted to join the Alliance, they would hear the story of the man who had challenged a legend and won. They would hear about how a human had proven that strength came not just from power or age or intelligence. They would learn that strength came from caring about other people. Strength came from never giving up. Strength came from being willing to fight for something bigger than yourself. Military schools taught about Ji-hoon and Taejin in classes about strategy and honor. Young warriors from every species learned about the duel in the arena. They learned that the greatest victory was not always the most violent victory. Sometimes the greatest victory was the one that changed how people thought about the world. Taejin and Ji-hoon became friends after the duel. It was strange to many people that a Valthian and a human could be friends, but they were. They would meet and talk about fighting and about honor and about what it meant to be a warrior. Taijun learned more about human emotions and human ways of thinking. He learned that his people had missed important things because they had only lived for hundreds of years. Humans might live shorter lives, but they lived those lives more fully and more carefully. I have lived for 200 years, Taijun told Ji-hoon one day, but I learned more about what it means to live in the year after our duel than I learned in all my years before. The legend had not fallen when Ji-hoon defeated him in the arena. The legend had only changed. Taijun was still a great warrior. Taijun was still important, but now people also knew about Ji-hoon, and people began to understand that maybe the things they thought made them weak could sometimes make them strong. When other humans looked at Ji-hoon, they saw someone who had proven that their species mattered. When other species looked at Ji-hoon, they saw someone who had changed how they thought about the universe. And when Ji-hoon looked at himself, he saw a man who had fought for his friend and had won. Not because he was the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but because he cared about someone enough to never give up. On the day of the anniversary of the duel, the Galactic Coalition held a special ceremony. Ji-hoon was given a medal by leaders from every species. But before he would accept it, he asked that Wu Jin's name be spoken first. He asked that all 300 names be remembered. He asked that everyone understand that they had not died for nothing. They had died and they had mattered. And in that moment, something that seemed small and weak at first became powerful and important. Humans who had been seen as short-lived creatures with no value became something different. They became warriors. They became friends. They became worthy of respect and honor. The galaxy had changed. And it had changed because one human had been brave enough to fight for someone he loved.